Well, folks, we're back with another weekly AMA with Hearthstone developer Iksar, and boy, this is gonna be a spicy one. We got to talk about some Mercenaries nerfs. It's gonna make your Mercenaries life potentially a lot harder. We got teas of a new class and lots of other stuff too, but let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so let's kick it off here with Mercenaries, which somehow mysteriously just got a lot grindier. And to give some people context out there who haven't played Mercenaries, you might still find this interesting. Essentially, people were farming this low-level run, and Mercenary just grinding it over and over and over again because it was far and away the most efficient way to unlock equipment for Mercenaries, and in many cases also gain the individual currencies for Mercenaries to level up your characters. So if you want to do things like play PvP right away, everybody else is grinding this thing to advance their characters. Your characters get left behind. Theoretically, there were matchmaking protections that allowed you to play people at your level, but even me, I experienced where I was playing people with way stronger teams and characters. So same story, I have to grind this low level experience as well in order to advance my character. And Blizzard announced yesterday that they're nerfing that so that you're no longer able to, run low level stuff over and over again. You're not going to get the mysterious stranger that unlocks the tasks that makes this rewarding. Instead, you're going to have to run higher level content if you want to do that, which in essence makes the grind take like twice as long, because running the higher level content, the fights are a little slower to get through. You have to do more fights on average. So essentially, they doubled the time it takes to level up your Mercenaries characters. And it already, in my mind, felt way too grindy to do that. There are, of course, people who like these gacha modes and they enjoy the grind. That's great. For a majority of players, I would argue, especially those who only care about PvP, it was already too slow and it just got way slower. And on top of that, you've created this gap for people who spent the first 10 days grinding. They're now forever going to be way ahead of people who didn't spend the first 10 days grinding. And you've got this like division in the player base. So all in all, it made Mercenaries more grindy. It created a separation between players. Frankly, it just feels super bad that I know now I have to spend twice as long to get the same things as other people. So there were these like significant downsides to this decision. It was the right thing to do from a gameplay experience. Like obviously it wasn't designed that way. Like clearly Blizzard didn't want people running the lower level experience. So I actually do understand why they did it. Like moving forward, if you bring new people into the system, they're not going to have this like awful, just like grind the level 8 thing with your level 30 characters. That's a super weird way to play the game. So I understand it there. The issue is that even though this makes sense, they didn't go in and give us other ways to lessen the grind. So they took the most efficient progression out of the game and they didn't replace it with anything that makes life better and makes life easier. So the game just got way grindier. If they had made this change, which again, I think makes sense, like I get it, but they had, paired it with some other way to progress your characters more easily, it would have been a lot more palatable. People would have gone, oh yeah, okay, I get it. That is a really weird way to play the game. In a lot of RPGs, you're not going back to farm like level 3 characters, right? You're farming stuff that's your level or that's really hard. So essentially the curve of rewards doesn't make sense in Mercenaries. This didn't help fix it. They didn't make, the grind any easier. They just made it objectively harder. So, or I guess grindier, it's not still particularly difficult. And that's the problem, is like, we're still just going to do the same grind. It's just going to be slower and still just as boring and still practically as easy, just a little bit harder, more time consuming, really. So to get to the actual question of this one, Yankerlo here basically asked what I was hinting, is like, is there going to be ways to increase the efficiency of grinding and upgrading our characters now that you've removed the way we were doing that? Iksar says, as we talked about, the intention of the change was to stop players from feeling like they have to farm the same low-level content over and over again to play optimally, which, again, that makes sense. It's just we need some kind of replacement effort. Paul, lead designer, Ben, game director, will be mulling feedback of this recent change over the weekend. And people have been very, very disappointed and expressing that all over Twitter. And if you scroll here, people are angry. And on Reddit, there's a ton of threads. And I'm frankly disappointed, put out a tweet about it myself. It's just all around kind of a frustrating change. But the good news here is, they're already acknowledging the feedback's pretty harsh, and they'll be mulling the feedback over the weekend. So maybe this is something that'll get tweaked, or I don't know. Maybe they went really hard and they'll pull back a little bit, which might still suck, but would ease some of the pressure. Whereas right now, we're still stuck in this boring, grindy world. All right, so moving on. More questions here about Mercs. Can we expect some balance changes? Iksar says it's essentially still too early for balance changes. There's been a lot of shakeups in the meta over these first 10, 12 days or whatever. So they'll check, if we start to see a stabilization and some characters really stand out at the top of the meta, that's the point where they'd swoop in and make some changes. But it's essentially still just a little too early and eyeing stuff, which I think is completely reasonable. Nobody looks like a crazy standout right now because things are still moving so much. And I think Mercs has some natural counterability thanks to the role system. So anytime somebody becomes crazy powerful, you can kind of swing the meta a little bit and counter them. That is if you have access to a variety of mercs, which most people still do not and seemingly may never get. So this one's fun. Since you added Demon Hunter, has the team discussed the idea of adding Death Knight and or Monk anytime soon, or other classes outside of Warcraft, which I've always talked about? I'd like a Tinkerer class. I think it'd be cool to see Hearthstone come up with their own class. I mean, of course, if they want to go through Death Knight and Monk first, that's totally fine, but maybe someday. Iksar says, yes, we have considered that. All of those things, rather carefully, ... an extra dot in the ellipses there. Not ready to talk about which one of them is most likely. No timeline yet, but we'll do another class at some point, smiley face. As far as I'm concerned, this is like 97% confirmation that another class is already in the works. I wouldn't be surprised if it's coming in the next year based on the way this goes and previous answers he's given. He's like kind of ramped this up every time he's talked about it. So it's almost like it's more and more sure. Initially, he said Death Knight was prioritized ahead of Monk. He also, though, in the past kind of teased maybe a new class was like moving up in that possibility. So I think it'll either be Death Knight or a new class. I still think it's probably like 70-30 Death Knight. And of course, this is all made up speculation. This is just based on how he's responded. But he's also teased Lich King a lot as well. So Death Knight / Lich King. I think we're going to see Death Knight with, of course, Arthas / the Lich King as the base hero for the class. And I think it'll come at the end of next year. So the end of 2022, expansion 3. That's my guess. Locking it in now. Hopefully sooner, but that's my idea. Here's a question about Priest. Do you see a rework for Priest coming up? It says Priest has been subpar at everything lately. I don't know if I agree with that particular sentiment. I mean, we just had Face Shadow Priest until the Elucia nerf was really, really good. Iksar kind of references the same. Control Priest and Barons and Shadow Priest in Stormwind are both pretty good. But anyway, he says there must always be a worst class. So maybe Priest is going to stay a worst class. But he does say they'll be back. So I don't know. It sounds like no major rework coming for Priest. I think Scott's kind of question intent, as much as power level might have been a reference to like play style. A lot of people hate playing against any given version of Priest we've had. Something about the design of Priest seems to capture people's frustration. And I don't know. Maybe no big rework coming for Priest, but at least some power level changes in the near future. Who knows? Here's a question about the mini set. Where's the mini set? What's the news on the mini set? Iksar just says they'll have one. The publishing team will announce when they're ready. Which is, we're like running out of time on the mini set. I think it's going to be November 2nd because in that like Diablo duels news and stuff, we saw a patch teased for November 2nd. They don't release that many patches. So I'm like 97% sure it'll be November 2nd based on that. So it's just weird that he's still being fairly coy about it and not saying like, oh, very soon or maybe news this week, that sort of thing, right? I mean, it doesn't really promise or deny anything here at all. It's just, I think there'd be more significant teases. I think something weird's going on with this mini set. I think it's going to be different, or it's going to have Diablo or like something. They're like holding the news and like playing this one up a little more, being more sneaky and coy about it. So I wonder if something strange or just distinct or unusual or cool is going to happen with this mini set that we don't normally see. I mean, the reason it got delayed was confirmed that it was like Mercenaries related. So maybe that's still just part of it. They're just kind of riding the Mercenaries wave, but I'm still suspicious something crazy or unusual is going to happen as well. And then finally here, a question about balance changes that might be coming with or before the mini set. Iksar passes this along to the balance team, Chalky, Gallon, and Boar. Gallon responds, no spoilers for any balance change considerations, but I think we can take another look at Pursuit of Justice, which I guess was specifically called out. That's the paladin card that buffs your Silverhand recruits attack by 1. Iksar says that sort of sounds like a spoiler, and Gallon says no spoilers for what is and is not a spoiler. So to me, this actually sounds like we might get some balance changes alongside the mini set in the next week or so. Usually you think the mini set just takes care of the meta shakeup. Maybe they really want to disrupt things this time around, which certainly works for me. And yeah, I think that covers it for this AMA. A lot to talk about this time around because of all that Mercenaries stuff. All in all, pretty frustrating change, I think. Again, it makes sense. I get it. Like, I understand why that change is made. I just think you have to do more than that change alone, or it just leaves us all in a really frustrated spot, which is exactly where everybody feels like they're at right now. They made a grindy game mode even grindier, which is pretty tough. So, all that said, curious to your thoughts. What do you think about all this stuff? Mercs, mini set, and more. Ooh, that's fun. So look forward to reading that in the comments below. Thanks a bunch as always for watching, and until next time, game on.